Hello everyone and welcome to the first part of my first person horror tutorial series. The goal with this project is to create many different gameplay mechanics that you could use in a first person horror game. Hopefully each video will be a continuating tutorial series, but if there's a gameplay mechanic that you want to just pick and choose from, my hope is that I can create it in a way that you could just pick and choose which mechanics. You don't have to watch the full series to understand how it works. If you just want a simple sanity system, you can watch that video, take the information and put it into your game or whichever. The first episode is going to be mainly movement mechanics. So we're going to go over changing the walking speed, sprinting with a stamina system. We're going to have crouching with checks to make sure you're able to stand up again. So if you have like tunnels or things like that, we're going to do some things with the camera to add some different effects, like different smoothing. And I'm going to go over input actions very briefly. So let's get started. So I'm using as a base the first person template. And what I've done is I've just created a simple room and nothing else. So if I press play, we have just the default first person, like very fast movement, not really very horror-ish. It's too fast. And so we're going to change that. So what I've done in the content drawer is I've made a folder called horror tutorial, and this is just the default first person character. So we're going to load this up. So the first thing we're going to do is lower the walk speed because we're moving too fast. So to do that, character movement, click on here. And then here's all the different settings you can change. For character movement, we're going to come into character movement walking. Max walk speed is currently 600. I'm going to try, let's try 350. And then let's give this a try. But a little bit better. Maybe a bit too fast, but this will do for now. First thing, let's do sprinting. So what we're going to do is in the folder, I'm going to create a new folder called inputs. In here, I'm going to right click and come to input and then input action. So I'm going to call this IA for input action underscore, and we're going to add a couple. I'll add crouch, and then I'm just going to duplicate this and do IA underscore sprint. Oh, I can't spell today, sprint. So if we open this, we're just going to, for the crouch, it can just be a digital bool, which is it on or off? So for the triggers, we want pressed and released. So now we need to add them to our actual input data asset. Now for me, because I haven't moved this folder over, it's in first person input and it's IMC default. So if we open here, we have different mappings. So what we can do is we can add, and we can find crouch, and then we can add another mapping, and we can have our sprint. The way these work is, as you can see here for like movement, you can bind multiple keys under here and then assign them a value on what will actually trigger this. So for crouch, I'm going to use control, and sprint, I'm going to use shift. What you can do if you have controllers, you can add another button, and then you can basically pick what button you want to use. If I had a controller plugged in, it would work the same. Click this little keyboard and then press the button and it would work. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is call IA underscore sprint. So we can check to make sure it's working. So what we can do is we can do a print string, and on started we can say I am sprinting, and then on completed I am walking. So if we try this now, just to make sure it works. So if I press shift, I am sprinting. If I let go, I am walking. Perfect. If you're wondering why my nodes look different from yours, like when I connect things, it's straight lines and not they're not like wiggly lines. I'm actually using a plugin from the marketplace. It's called, if I can find, it's called Electronic Nodes. It works. Everything works the same. It's just instead of having the spaghetti, this just lines it up. It's just easy for me to see what I'm doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a few values in variables. So the first one we're going to create is we're going to have, we'll do integer. We'll do whole numbers. So this will be the max stamina. We can need another one, which can be current stamina. Do we need any more? We can add a boolean called is sprinting, like this. So what we're going to do is we want to assign these values first. So max stamina, I'm going to say 100. And current stamina, I'm going to set as 100. So we start off with 100 stamina. So when we press the button, the first thing we want to do is we want to do a branch. And we want to check that we're able to actually sprint. So to do this, we can drag off current stamina, and we can do is greater than 0. And we can hook that in like this. Let's line this up. So if our current stamina is greater than 0, what we want to do then is we want to decrease the stamina over time. The way we do this is we can create a timer. If I pull out and type set timer by event like this, we can actually pull from the event and do custom event, and we can say decrease stamina. So this is where we set how often it should happen. So let's say we want every second. It should loop. So every second, this event here will trigger. So what we can do is we can drag out the current stamina, and we can say minus, and then we can say 1. Next thing is we need to drag it out and set the thing like this. But we don't want to just hook this up straight away. We want to pull off from current stamina and type clamp. This will stop the value from going below a certain number because we don't want it to go minus. So we put this into value. So the minimum it can go is 0, and the maximum will be the max stamina. Now, you don't really need this here, but it's just so you understand what is happening. So we decrease the stamina. Next, what we want to do is, well, what happens when the stamina reaches 0? Because this will still continue firing. Keep going until it's 0. So we can actually add a branch here, and we can get off the current stamina and say is less than or equal to 0. Just in case it goes minus somehow, we can say that's enough, stop it. So once it's less than or equal to, so let's try it out. So if I do a print string and just put it in here like this, and I connect that up to that and that, and then if I try it, so if I press shift, so see how we're counting down in the top? So that's our stamina going down. So we want it to be a bit quicker than that. So let's say 10, like this. So every second, we will take off 10 from our stamina value. So We go. Well, we've hit 0. Now we stop the timer. So the next thing then would be, once we start sprinting, so once we've actually started, we can set the is sprinting to be true for this. Once this is now done, so we're no longer sprinting, we can remove that. We can say we're not sprinting here. And then we can also then do it here. So once we've completed, we can set is sprinting to see this here. The next thing, so we have it so that when we start sprinting, we take off a value. We don't have any way to like increase the speed or anything or decrease the speed. So we can do that up here. So once we actually start sprinting and we've set we are sprinting, we want to get the character movement. We could drag up and set walk speed, like this. And this is where we can set the movement speed. So you can either just type it in here, or if you want to make it so it's easier to edit later on, you just promote it to a variable and say sprinting speed, like this. So if we do say 700, we'll sprint super fast. And if we try this now, if I start sprinting, I press the button, now I'm moving a lot quicker than I was before. And just to compare it to normal, this is normal, we sprint. But what happens then when we stop? Well, it's basically the same thing. We get the character movement, so I can just copy this here. When we're not sprinting, we want to set the max walk speed back to the original walk speed. So what we do here is we just click on the character movement. You see walk speed. So 350. We put that in there, like this. And then the same for here. So we're no longer sprinting, so we can copy this. We just move this down, hook that up, 350. The other thing is as well, we also want to add this timer here. Oops. To make this easier, what we can do is the return value we can promote to a variable. We can call this sprint timer and then hook that back up. So sprint timer, we can hook into the handle here. And then the same thing, so I can control click, control C, control V. So we do the same here. So we just clear the timer because we don't want it to tick down. If I try it now, I'm holding sprint, I'm running fast, I let go, and walk in again. So now we have that set up, but we want to do it so that the stamina should then regenerate over time. So now we want to make it so we can actually get stamina back. To do this, we're going to use timers again. So there'll be two places where this can happen. Once it's completed, once we let go of the button, or once this ends, like once we've no longer sprinting. So the way we can do this is we can create another timer. So we can set timer by event. And here we can pull down and do custom event, regen stamina. Same again with, we want it looping, and the timer should be how often you want the stamina to come back. So say every 0.5 of a second you want the stamina to come back. So the way this one works is we pull in the current stamina, and we need the max stamina for this. The current stamina, we need another one, so we can pull out and do set. What we do here is we say current stamina plus, and then how much stamina you want to get back. So for this, I will say 5. Like the previous, we don't want to just keep increasing the stamina. We want it to stop at a certain value. So we pull down and clamp. Hook up the value to this. The minimum should be 0. The maximum should be the stamina max. So in case you have a power up in your game to increase stamina, then you can increase this value and it will still work. So like that, we regen the stamina. So a lot like this. And then what we're going to do now is, if the stamina is equal or greater than the max stamina, do a branch. So just like this, promote a variable. So regen stamp timer. So just like this, we want to grab this and clear and invalidate timer by handle. True. So this will check that if the stamina is at the max amount, then we stop regenning the stamina. So for here, completed, we can do the same. We can literally just drag this set node here, and then we can just call this up here. So if I drag this and plug it into this set timer, quite hard to see. What I can do is you can pull out and do a reroute node just to make it so you can like add another node in, and then we can connect that up like that. So now we have this. There is one more thing, which is what happens if we are regenerating our stamina and then we start sprinting. So the way we can fix this is we can say this here, this regen stamina, on a branch, we can check that, are we currently sprinting? If we're not sprinting, we can put it into false. But if we are, we just want to run to the clear and invalidate timer, because we don't want to be like sprinting and then stop sprinting, regen stamina, sprint again, and we just keep regenning. So if we check, get the current stamina, we'll do a print string and hook this up. We can click the little drop down and press number 1 to get it so it doesn't overlap. It will just, well, it will overlap on the same one. It won't just fill the screen. So now if we look, we have 100 stamina. So if we sprint, it goes down. If we let go, it goes up. If we start sprinting again, it goes down. So it will never allow us to just infinitely sprint because we're not allowed. So if I let go now we're back to normal, and then it starts refilling. So that's the sprint. It's quite a lot to do, but you can move this into a function if you wanted. But this is just a very simple way of having a stamina system that will regen over time. But if you don't want this, so if you want a stamina system that doesn't regenerate like this and requires you to do a pickup, instead of doing this here, if I just unclip this bit here, like this, so now the stamina shouldn't regenerate. So if I try it, so I need the event tick to show event tick, and then print string this, and then we do current stamina. See how it fills because I didn't select the key. So if I select the key, now we only have the. So if I'm running down, I let go, we're no longer regenerating stamina. So the way you would do a pickup is, in a very simple term, I'll show you on a button press. So we can do keyboard 1, for example. So this logic you would have sent to your character from like a pickup or something when you use an item. But the basic way of doing it is you would get the current stamina, and then you would add, so plus, and you'd do the same you would clamp it, you would hook that up. The max would be the max stamina. And then you would say, okay, I want to give 25 stamina. Like this. So when you play now, you would run around and, oh no, I need stamina. I need to eat an energy bar. Eat it, and my stamina is back. So that's the way of not using the regen. So you have the regen way, and then you have the eating something. So what I'll do is I'll comment this and I'll say regen on use, and then we can call it regen over time. So what I will do is I'll just hook this back up like this. Hook that up there. Hook that up there like that. So that if we check now, just to make sure that we're back. So we're running. We stop. Back. Yep. So that's the sprinting system with 2 ways to refill your stamina. So the next part is going to be crouching with a check to make sure that there is nothing above your head when you want to stand up. This makes it so you can't just go into a tunnel, stand up and see through the world. So to do this, we're going to call the crouch action event we created earlier. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to start by doing the basic crouch. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to use a timeline. And this is just a simple, so this allows you to change a value over time. So what we can do is we can do like crouch TL. So this is how long you want your timeline to run. So for me, I found 0.5, which is half a second, is perfectly fine. We can right click to add a keyframe or a key node. So for me, I want it to start at 0, 0. The last part, the time will be 0.5 and the value will be 1. So we're going to go from 0 to 1. I'm going to highlight all the nodes and press number 1 on my keyboard to make it smooth. So now we have this, which is our timeline. What we can do now is we can, when we trigger it, which is when we hold the button down, we want to check if we are crouching. So to do that in this tutorial, we're going to do a bool. We can call it is crouching, question mark. And we can pull it out and do a branch. So we can untriggered, we can say, are we crouching? If we're not, then we want to play this timeline. If we are crouching, then we just don't want to do anything. So on false, actually, what we want to do is we want to set now we are crouching. Is crouching false? We're setting crouching, we're telling that we're crouching, and then we play. On the update, we're going to pull out and set capsule half height. So this is, if I come to character movement and we can see the half height, half height. Where is it? Or is it just here on this bit? Capsule half height, there we go. That's how tall the capsule is. So if I shrink it, you can see it shrinking in size. So by default, it's 96. I don't know why that changed to a different value. So 96, but we're actually going to set it to the default. We're going to say 88 here. So you have a bit of a smaller character. We're also going to make the capsule a bit skinnier. So we can click on capsule and the radius. I'm going to make it more like 35, just so it's a bit skinnier like this. So our half height is 88. What we want to do is pull out from half height and we can do a lerp, which is we'll go from this value to this value. So we know our height is 88. So B, which will be half, because we're going to go down half, is 44. I'm going to put that in. The alpha will be the crouching of the timeline. So we can try this now. So if I press the button, we go down like that, but we don't come back up, and we're just stuck now at this height. So we want to do the standing up now. Now this is the part that we do a check to make sure there's nothing above our heads. So I'm going to put this into a function, and to make a function, you can just click here, and it just moves the code into a nice area that's separate that we can call this anywhere. I'm going to call this crouch check, like this. So when we call this, we want to do a capsule trace by channel, because we want to basically have another version of ourselves spawn in, well, a capsule version of ourselves spawn in above our head at our correct height to see if it's hitting anything. So the start, we're going to do get actor location. We're going to run this in, the start will be the get actor location. Next, we want to pull down and do plus. And we want to split this bottom here, this node, so we can get the individual float values. And the Z is going to be the capsule height, the full height. So for me, it's 88. That's what we're going to put here. The end will go into the end like this. The radius, we're going to get the capsule component up here on the top left and get capsule radius like this. And that will go into the radius. The out hit, we're going to pull out here and do break like this. The execute, pull out, do return. We're going to actually connect the blocking hit to this. Now it doesn't show there's any way you can do it, but you can see the little tick. If I do that, now we see that is returning this. So if we go back to the event graph and we pull the function in, you can see now we have the blocking hit. So anything that runs into this will run all that code and then spit out if we've hit something here. So on completed, we want to do this check. Once we let go of the button, we want to see, can I stand up? We do a branch and connect that up. So on false, we can stand up. We want to say we are no longer crouching. So we can do set this. We're no longer crouching, and that can go into reverse. So we're basically reversing the timeline and reversing this back on itself. If we did hit something, what we want to do now is we want to set timer by event. So the reason I do this is once you let go of the button, we want it to continuously do this check until it's safe to stand, because otherwise, if we do it once, this will only run once. So if this is, we are hitting something, then it would just do nothing. So on this event, the time, we're going to get world delta seconds. And world delta seconds is basically the frame time. So you would use this to make sure that, from what I understand, it's a node that will work the same on every frame rate. If you don't have this, there can be issues where lower frame rates have incorrect timing. Same with higher. So it's good to use this because it just means everything gets adjusted to the correct value. It needs to be looping. The event for this, we pull down and we can do a custom event, and we can call this crouch check timer. So in here, I'm going to do a print string, and I'm going to just do a check. I'm going to put this key to 2, set the color, and I'm going to say cannot stand up. We're going to do a crouch check again, which is going to go into a branch. If we are no longer doing anything, we want to promote this to a variable first. Call this crouch timer. We want to clear this away because we don't need to keep running the check because it's safe to stand. We clear and invalidate timer. Put that into false. This will then go back up to is crouching, and then we will stop. So I try this out now. If I play, if I crouch and I can stand up because there's nothing above me. And just to visualize it, in the crouch check, I will run a 1 frame. So if I look up and crouch, it's not triggering. Is it because it's on that? So if I do this, there we go. So you can see this is what's happening. It's checking my current location and comparing it to where I want to be. To show that what happens when there is an object above us, I'm just going to use this, and I will create a sort of tunnel. So like this. So I crouch and I go into the tunnel. Now I let go. Now I can't stand up, and we're just constantly doing a check. So can I stand up? Once I can stand up, then the check will stop. Also, doing that is very bad because persistent, if you're constantly running this, it will chug FPS. So you don't want to show the debug in-game. But if I do this now, you can see, there we go, we've got 1 check running. And you can see that, oh no, I can't stand up. And because it's a capsule, see the capsule width? There we go. It makes sure that we're fully able to do it. Like fully stand up like this. So that's the crouching part. So we have sprinting, crouching. Now the issue is when we're sprinting, when we crouch, we want to lower the speed again because you don't walk at full speed while crouching. So we can do that here. Same way we've done it before. We can set walk speed. No, we pull character movement. Set walk speed like this. So we would, the normal walk speed, if we click on here and check, we can search walk speed 350. So say I'm crouched, it's 200. When I stand up, which you want to do it after this. So we want to put it here. After we reset the is crouching, so we're no longer crouching. And this can go back to the default value, which is 350. We can hook that back up and make sure the character movement is hooked in here, like this. So now if I test, I can crouch, I move slower, I stand up, full speed. But we have an issue. If I crouch, we can sprint, which we don't want. So the way we solve this is on sprinting, we want to check if the current stamina is greater than 0 and is crouching not. Not means are we crouched? We're not crouched. We've put that in and we can check. So now if we crouch and I hold sprint, we don't do anything. But we're having the same issue now with this. Because on completed, we basically, it's just always running this. So what we can do is, we just want to check, are we sprinting? Like this. And if we are, then we do that. Same with the crouch. We're sprinting, we crouch, we lower our speed. So that's fine. And let's move this over like this. There we go. Okay, so that is sprinting here. And then we have crouching. So I can just highlight these and crouching. And then sprinting. To do this, you highlight an area and press C. So you can either just press C to get this and drag it, or if you highlight nodes and press C, it will put this over it. And then you can just double click on it and name it. Next thing I want to do is make the camera have a bit more weight to it. And what I mean by that is, if we play now, by default, it's very snappy, and I don't really like this type of movement, especially in a horror game. I think the movement should have some slowness to it, in a sense. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to actually modify the way the camera works. So currently, the camera is just here. We're going to change that. We're going to come up here to the components on the player and add a spring arm. The spring arm, we're going to drag the first person camera onto the spring arm. Now the camera will have gone because the spring arm is currently set to have a length of 300. We can actually set that to 0. The next thing we have to do is we want to click use pawn control rotation here. And on the camera itself, we want to untick use pawn control rotation. Now, if I play this now, you won't really notice any different. But what we can do is, spring arms have these camera lag nodes. And if we add a rotation camera lag and set it to 8, what you see then is there's like a slow, like we're no longer moving quick. We've got this very slight delayed on the movement. It's more smooth. It's very nice for looking around. So you can change this however what you want. I use 8. If you do 4, when I move, it's very delayed. You would have to try it to really see. But I normally go for 8. Got a bit of a delay behind it. It's just got a bit of not realism, but it's a lot more less sharp. This tutorial is a bit of a longer one, but it's setting the base of the character up. The last thing I'm going to do here is show you how we can categorize these nodes, because currently we're going to end up with a lot if we keep doing it this way. So what we can do is, say if we have the stamina here, we can come up to the category and we can remove the word default and type in stamina to create the category. And we can just drag that in now. So now all these nodes to deal with stamina can go in there. So we can do regen stam timer can go in there like that. The same for sprinting. We can say sprinting. So we can put that in there like this. Same for crouching. So we have crouching, and we can say crouching like this. There we go. Now we have crouch. So now we can hide these away when we don't need to see these. So this has been part 1. What we've gone over now is slowing the player down with a movement, sprinting with a stamina system that regens, or we can force a regen, crouching with a check to make sure there's nothing above our heads when we stand up, adding some camera smoothing using spring arms, and then creating some input actions and adding those in. The next tutorial is going to be going over flashlight, because that's the main thing people want in a horror game to set up is a flashlight. So that'll be the next video. If you have any suggestions on things you want to see, please leave a comment. Like I say, the thought behind the tutorial series is it's a bunch of different systems that you can pick and choose from. Or if you want to, you can follow the whole series and have a strong foundation for a game. So I'm going to say thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.